So much for keeping it here on Morning at NTV. Stephen Mbide coming to you live from Hotel Africana. This is an engagement that is taking place here, a two-day conference or engagement that is supposed to look at the assessment of open distance e-learning in our high institutions of learning. And this is going to be opened officially by the First Lady, also Minister of Education and Sports, Honorable Janet Kataha Museveni, who will be addressing this meeting virtually. But with me here is the Executive Director of National Council for Higher Education. Is going to be letting me know about what they are intending to get out of this. They are at least assessing the teaching and learning from this ODEL program. Good morning to you, and thank you so much for speaking to me, Professor Mary Okakwol.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Good morning, viewers. It's my pleasure to be here to tell you about the conference that the National Council for Education is organizing for these 2 days, today and tomorrow.
Professor, when COVID-19 hit this country and of course the entire world, students were really affected. Schools were closed, universities were closed, and students were sent back home. But learning had to continue. That's why this program, Open Distance E-Learning, had to be enforced. In your initial assessment and research, how has this program been running across the different institutions?
Yeah, when the institutions were closed as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, National Council for Higher Education realized that something had to be done to ensure continuity of learning. So we developed emergency ODEL systems. Actually, it was an emergency ODEL system. What it meant is that this system had to be implemented to deliver programs that had been previously accredited using face-to-face. That's why it was called emergency. So when it was developed, approved by the National Council itself, and also approved by the ministry, we now sent it out to the institutions. And institutions started preparing to implement. But in order for them to be permitted to implement, they had to apply to the National Council for Higher Education. The council sent teams of experts to the institutions that informed us that they were ready, and the teams were supposed to inspect and ensure that the facilities were in place and that the institutions had prepared both the staff and students.
And when you've gone into these institutions, I know there are institutions that are even far away from Kampala, universities and other high institutions of learning. Are you contented that, yes, this learning has been ongoing and the students have benefited from the initial target that you were targeting?
To the extent that the uptake of ODEL has been low, success has been limited. Because, for instance, of the 54 accredited universities, only 37 have been approved to implement the ODEL, the emergency ODEL system, which means that the rest have not been approved. But the good thing is that because the institutions were veiled the guidelines, they have been able to prepare themselves, and many more are applying so that they are approved.
And now that the success has been, yes, you registered some success, but still you really had to make sure that learning continues. And now that we are back into physical learning, is this a program that you think that, yes, universities and other institutions of learning should continue putting into place, looking at the issue, the fact that yes, there is the capacity needs to still be built up, but also the finances. Many of these institutions don't have the funds to run such a program. Is this a time that you think maybe let's put a hold on it, or we need to facilitate and empower these institutions?
I think with Odell, there is no turning back. But as I said at the very beginning, what we developed were guidelines for an emergency Odell system. But going forward, we also have in place minimum standards for developing programs that are specifically intended to be offered using the Odell mode of delivery. And these, incidentally, were developed before even the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic, because they were distributed to institutions way back in August 2019. So what we've been urging institutions is that they do use those guidelines, rather those standards, the minimum standards, to develop academic programs that are specifically intended to be offered using the Odell mode of delivery. Because once there is a declaration that the COVID pandemic is over, because now, well, we have a relief, but it has not been declared that it is over. Because once that is declared, then the emergency guidelines will cease to apply.
Okay.
And institutions that have not developed programs and had them approved to be delivered using that mode, the Odell mode, will not be permitted to continue. And this position has been communicated to the institutions already.
Thank you, Professor Mary Okakwol. And finally, this engagement, what are you trying to achieve? Who is part of this meeting? And going out to those universities, what message is coming from National Council of Higher Education in fostering and enhancing learning as we wind up?
Well, we have invited all stakeholders, I can say, because even those who will not be coming to this venue have been invited to get on online. So we have invited those stakeholders. But to the venue, we have invited representatives of the cross-section of stakeholders, including members of parliament, our, heads of our sister institutions, agencies. We have invited senior members of staff of the Ministry of Education. Let me say in summary, a cross-section of the representatives of stakeholders.
Thank you.
You also asked what is expected.
Finally, in 30 seconds.
Okay, we expect that this will give an opportunity to institutions to network, to share experiences and innovations, so that those who are not doing as well can implement the ideas that they'll get from here.
Thank you so much, Professor Mary J. Okakwol, the Executive Director of National Council for Higher Education, for speaking to me. Of course, these are some of the people coming from different institutions, and we shall be letting you know much more about what's happening here at this engagement about Odell assessment. Stephen Mbide on Fefeswe Chivuga, taking you back to studio for the rest of the quieter programming here on Morning at NTV. Keep it here.
Distance learning in higher education has actually grown leaps and bounds because of COVID-19. It opened the ways for universities to think out